Okay, so this is A Christmas Carol, or In the Bleak Midwinter, as it has come to be more commonly known when people are singing it, probably because that's the first line, and because it's not very specific to just call it A Christmas Carol. But it was published under this title in the January 1872 edition of Scribner's Monthly on a commission from the magazine's editor, and Rossetti received £10 for creating it, which was relatively good for a woman at the time. But if you consider that Robert Browning received £1,000 for some of the things he wrote, it was, not as much. There was quite a gap between what the women received and what the men received. 12 years after her death, it was set to music by Gustav Holst in 1906. This is probably the most commonly performed version, with the tune "In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan." A slightly lower tune than the 1909 Harold Dark version, which was "In the bleak midwinter, long ago," with an emphasis on the word long that emphasises, I suppose, the idea that Rossetti is looking back to the biblical setting of Christ's birth, of the nativity story. The poem's irregular metre means that any adaptation of it for singing requires a skillful and adaptable tune. So not that many people have put it to music, but the Christopher Hinkins version that I played earlier is a more recent version. And every stanza of the poem has a controlled alternate rhyme of ABC, BAB, CB. So, in stanza 1, we have the personification of the wind, with the line "frosty wind made moan," setting up a childlike nursery rhyme tone, which is also an example of pathetic fallacy. And in the entire stanza, the only word longer than 2 syllables is midwinter, so the relatively simplistic form makes it again childlike, nursery rhyme-like. The anaphoric phrase "snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow," with repeated assonance, reflects the sound of the wind howling, rendering the entire stanza onomatopoeic, with this blustering wind, this atmosphere of the cold winter. And the ending on "long ago" once more continues the nursery rhyme tone. It's kind of like a children's book. In stanza 2, we focus on the incarnation, Jesus Christ coming to earth in the flesh, incarnation with carnus being the Latin word for flesh. And this stanza was questioned theologically by hymnologist and theologian Ian Bradley, who wonders why she wrote "Heaven and earth shall flee away when he comes to reign." The idea that the earth needs to escape God seems to be in conflict with the idea of God being benevolent. So that might have been controversial at a time when more people were Christian, most people were, and they accepted God as a benevolent and loving God. In stanza 3, we have the repetition of "enough for him," emphasising Jesus' contentment with the lowly circumstances of his birth, and this links in with what Paul wrote in Philippians to the Philippians. Philippians 4:11, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances," and this links with Rossetti's ideas as a member of the Oxford movement about renunciation, about not being materialistic and relying on God and being content with the circumstances of your life, with the circumstances that God has given to you. And the heavenly imagery in this stanza is juxtaposed with the lowliness of the stable, so the cherubim are juxtaposed with this manger full of hay, this lowly stable setting. The cherubim are winged creatures like angels, but slightly lower than angels, they're younger. In stanza 4, we have the internal rhyme of cherubim and seraphim, emphasising the poem's melodic metre, and Rossetti highlights the importance of the Virgin Mary but only his mother, in her maiden bliss, worshipped the beloved with a kiss. They, as the Oxford movement, did believe Mary was very important, believed in the Immaculate Conception of Christ, and as Mary being a perfect virgin figure, a figure to be admired, but they did not pray to Mary, and they did not worship Mary in the same way as some denominations did. They still believed God was the only one with authority, but they did believe Mary was significant. And finally we have stanza 5, with the repetition of "if I were," when Rossetti imagines these other scenarios she could be in. The childlike earnestness in this repetition matches the tone of the rest of the poem, this childlike, simplistic tone. And the enjambment in the final line, "yet what I can I give him," and then a dash, "give my heart," shows the speaker's decisiveness to devote their life to Jesus. Rossetti kind of metaphorically putting her foot down, giving her life to God, and this is a theme throughout her poetry, her devout religious beliefs, and she always throughout her life, even writing as late as 1872, was committed to God.